Hey, what's up, guys? Today I want to talk about leaderboards. They just got officially announced. They'll be coming out February 7th. And I wanted to chat about it because I am not the most excited, to be honest. I've been a little disappointed with how things have been handled, what types of leaderboard stats that you'll be pursuing, the rewards, the whole process. And yeah, I've been very upset about it. And this is kind of the first time in a long time I felt that AGS has really dropped the ball with an update, and since this is really the only content we're getting in the near future and it's very underwhelming, I wanted to address that and get your guys' thoughts. If you have any, of course, drop a comment below. Let me hear from you. And yeah, this is kind of just an address to AGS and the New World community, and just kind of putting my thoughts out there because very, very disappointed in what we're getting. But without further ado, we're going to hop into it. We're going to talk about what actually are the leaderboards and then why I'm not excited and get into all that. If you're interested in anything specific, you can check the timestamps. But yeah, without further ado, let's hop in. So first, we're going to hop into talking about what exactly are the leaderboards going to be. So this is going to be, as you can see, a way that they are categorizing more than 50 categories across PvP, PvE, or anything outside or in between. This is going to way for a weekly and quarterly categories for people to try and climb to the top, be at the best of the bet of said category, and win some exclusive skins and titles, which we'll get into the rewards in a little bit, kind of talking about that. But you'll get some titles and skins examples. Top 5 finisher for expedition named Victor, so you could be the Dynasty Victor, the Conqueror of Dynasty Shipyard, etc. And then these are the skins. Now, going into the categories, again, if you want to check out the actual, I'll have the link to this forum post in the description, but it'll be kind of based like this. You'll see the leaderboards, and it will have versus for PvE versus environment. We'll have mutated expeditions, which will be gold medal, expedition clear time to score. We'll have boss trials, which will just be completions, corrupted breaches, which is score, invasions, which is going to be score, wins, kills, death, KDR, heals, damage absorbed, damage dealt. So those are your PvE leaderboard categories. And then for PvP or versus players, they categorize into the different modes of PvP. So open world, we have player kills, influence earned, and control points captured. And then for the faction, influence earned and control points captured for open world. For Outpost Rush, we have score, wins, kills, death, KDR, NPC kills, resources contributed, heals, and damage dealt. For 3v3 arenas, we have score, wins, losses, win-loss ratio, kills, deaths, kill-death ratio, heals, and damage dealt. And then moving on to the faction wars, there'll be territory control leaderboards. So for the faction and companies, days governed and governing streak. So if your company and faction owns Windsward, we'll see how long you've owned it. You'll get a streak for how many days you've owned it and all that stuff, and that will contribute to the weekly and quarterly leaderboards. And then for wars themselves, for players, company, and faction, for players you have total wins, attacking wins, defense wins, score, kills, deaths, KDR, heals, damage absorbed, and damage dealt. Then company and faction, total wins, attacking wins, and defense wins. And then lastly, there will be for trade skills, so arcane, armoring, engineering, jewel crafting, weaponsmithing, and fishing. There'll be stuff for legendaries. So you can kind of see here the amount for weaponsmithing, the amount of legendaries that you have crafted in this period. So that's a quick overview of what the leaderboards are, what they entail. But let's get into why. And the first things first, I want to talk about of why I'm not that excited about these. Is maybe it's on me, but my expectations when they first talked about doing leaderboards and seeing who the best of the best was more of an expectation of a ranked system for PvP at the very least. I think what they did for like the mutations was kind of fine in terms of just like gold medal, expedition clear time and score. That allows a competitive speed running and scores for people that kind of have their go for the the top PvE content, and then for the top PvP content. I was expecting more of a ranked system, specifically maybe for 3v3 arenas, to be able to climb a ranked ladder and try to actually be the best of the best. That was my expectations when they talked about leaderboards, and having this in terms of these kind of strange score specific things that you are trying to achieve, especially when a lot of these score systems are kind of bad or seem strange that this is something that you want to track or encourage people to do, is a letdown. That's a very big letdown for me, and that I think that is the stem of my disappointment, of my expectations, which again could be on me, were not met, and then what we got not only did not meet what I was expecting, but it also, in my opinion, has some objective, just bad features. Now, beyond just my expectations not being met, I do want to talk about some other things. The other big thing I want to kind of move past before we get into the actual features that I'm not excited about. The big thing is there was an issue of how Amazon communicated for this adjustment. And what I mean is they did not really listen to a lot of the feedback, and at least that's how it feels. And we've had a lot of just like no responses, just emptiness. We had a test a while back, feedback was provided, it seemed like nothing was changed based off that feedback. They did another test, again nothing really changed. I think a great example of just a very simple thing that could have been changed, and someone posted this on Reddit, is they were asked, the feedback that they asked, you can't see the question, I'm blocking it, my apologies, but the question was, is the leaderboard discoverable in the UI? So can you find the leaderboard easily? And there's a lot of feedback saying, no, it should be moved. And then come on to the live version, nothing was changed about that. There was no changes. It's still only accessible through the navigation bar in the menu under modes. So again, a very simple, like, hey, this is not discoverable. Can we have it someplace else? Can we set it up someplace else? And not even that they didn't do it, but there was no feedback on like, oh, hey, we hear you, we're not doing it for this reason. So there was very much, we submitted feedback, and it just felt like we got ghosted, and they just submitted things and kept things. And despite seeing a lot of the issues, like there was feedback on how damage dealt and healing is going to be farmed. There's Reddit posts, there's a video where a game developer teleported above people doing this in the PTR, and it's still in the game. So it's very disappointing to feel like that all the testing, all the feedback was just ignored for something that just is not as good. So that was the other big gripe, but I'm gonna get into the actual things I want to talk about. I think beyond just my expectations not being met, I think another reason why the leaderboards are lackluster is not inherently an issue with the leaderboards, but because the actual game modes that they are tracking are lackluster themselves, if that makes sense. So a great example I feel like for this is for open world PvP. We have, for open world PvP, we just have 5 things total: 3 for players and 2 for faction. Kills, influence earned, and control point captured. And then for factions, influence earned, control point captures. That feels very just kind of lackluster. It's just, oh, it's kills, influence, like it doesn't seem like it's that invented or excitable. And I think that's also because, not just because of the leaderboards, but also because the actual like open world PvP could be so much more interesting beyond these 3 things. Like there's not like any hotspots in open world to fight over, or PvP open world events or anything to do. It's just run the PvE missions for influence control, or like sometimes fight over, forts. Like First Light is like a hotspot for like open world PvP. That's really like the only spot I can think of that you would actually get beyond like random contestings or like luck run fights. So because there's just not much going on for open world PvP, the leaderboard itself is lackluster. And I think that's an inherent thing that happens a lot with some of these feelings with the leaderboards, is because the actual things aren't that exciting. What you're trying to achieve is not that exciting. Now, on the flip side, there are actual leaderboard stats that are bad. I mentioned it before, but in OPR and stuff, the damage dealt and heals is just bad. It's just asking for there's a lot of stuff that's just like asking for padding, asking to be exploited, like I mentioned in that video that was shown. Like it's just asking to be exploited. These are just examples, but there's like almost any of these things beyond just like score and wins and losses. It's just asking to be exploitive. Like, hey bro, I'm trying to get top of the thing, this cute OPR, my 5 stack, your 5 stack. I'm really trying to get top this week. This week you just run to me, I'll farm kills off you. Next week you farm kills off me. Like there's a lot of just inherent stuff like that that's just asking to be exploited. That part feels bad. NPC kills in OPR also. Again, this may just because I don't like PvE and OPR. I think it just makes the game mode worse. So actually encouraging more of it is just bad in my opinion, but whatever. And then just like some like empty stuff like boss trials and corrupted breaches. boss trials just being completions and corrupted breaches just being score. First of all, I didn't even realize corrupted breaches had a score. So surprised there, but I guess they do, and oh well. But like just that, and then for like boss trials, just completions, like not even doing like time leaderboard for that. Again, just feels like, oh, like this is something that people already don't do, so we're just kind of brushed over, like who cares. That just makes the whole experience feel bad. And then, I'm also intrigued to see how these territory control streaks will lead. If it will actually lead to more PvP and people trying to have these wars, or if it's going to lead to more alliances to not push. Like, there's already been instances where, anecdotally, I've seen companies not war each other because, like, hey, you own Neverfall, we own Windsward, we're just going to let each other both soak in money and we'll just war other people and defend. I've seen that happen, so I'm curious if that's going to push for people to try and have that. That's a side issue. I don't know, but we'll see. And then lastly, I was also very disappointed in the crafting section for the trade skill of it just being legendaries to craft. I feel like that is just kind of like empty because there's so much more you could do with crafting. It's a huge component to this game. In fact, it's probably arguably crafting in this game is probably the most done content in this game. Like everyone's like getting luck runs, trying to get materials. Everything is all for crafting best gear and everything. Like it's like the core anchor for PvP and PvE and everything in this game. The fact that it's just legendaries to me means it's not going to be about actually crafting best gear or number of axes or anything like that. It's just going to be who spent the most money on scarabs and did their daily stopwatches for the stopwatch RNG. You know what I mean? Like 200, like for instance, this guy 273 crafted. Did he just go and buy 500 scarabs? No, and just got lucky, and that's how he got the top. Like that doesn't seem like an actual leaderboard thing. That's just like who's gonna spend the most money on scarabs and try and get and do their daily stopwatches, right? So it's very uninventive to me, and it just seems like for what seems to be like the core mechanic that binds this game together with trying to craft bis, like this seems like a letdown for like just getting legendaries. Like I don't know. I just feel this is, again, just all these issues I have with these actual specific stats just stem from, like, being uninventive and just very bare bones on modes that are already bare bones. It just seems to be a slap in the face to me, at least. Again, someone who wasn't, was expecting something else for leaderboards as well. Take that with a grain of salt, but very upset. And these are just examples. You probably can pinpoint your own issues with different rewards or stats to achieve or categories, but that was just like my thing. The one last thing I was upset about was the rewards. Here are the skins that they previewed. You got these capes with these like crystals shooting out. I'm not gonna even get too deep into that because it's just like all that work, all the grind you're gonna have to do, the exploiting people are gonna do, everything that's gonna be toxic in the cesspool with this for cape rewards. Just yeah. So whatever. I will say there are. I do want to preface. Now that we're kind of done talking about the bad, I do want to preface there are some things in here that I didn't dislike. Like I mentioned before, I think like the times mutation and everything, I think that's good. I also will say I am happy, despite not being the most excited about how they categorize some of it. I am happy that they added stuff for invasions and arenas, because not because of what the rewards are or for the categories in invasions arenas, but just because I think they'll help make more people participate in those activities. So it's not inherently because the stats are good, but invasion rewards are very lackluster. So trying to get people to do them, and they're very boring and easy. It's the worst game mode in the game at the moment, the most consistent game mode. And so it's just being very bad and just very weak and very boring. At least like it'll give a little bit more invigoration for people who want to do it. And same thing with kind of like arenas. Like there's not a ranked leaderboard like I was hoping for arenas, but hopefully this will mean people will actually try and be in arenas more and all that kind of stuff. But we'll have to see with how the stats actually are, if that makes it so people care more about just stat padding versus actually doing the events. So overall, I will say again, I'm not someone who necessarily is one who seeks out leaderboards or tries to be the top of these leaderboards, like outside like ranked PvP modes, like stuff like like your League of Legends ranks or your Valorant ranks or etc. Right? But this seems to be the only content we'll be getting anytime soon. It just is lackluster, doesn't actually add content to the game. It just seems like it's just only going to encourage a cesspool behavior and just inherently people finding exploits to be on the top of the leaderboards for, quite frankly, kind of shitty rewards. So very disappointed by this. I'm frustrated they didn't listen to feedback. I'm frustrated they went through with this iteration of the leaderboards, and I'm frustrated that this is, as far as we've been told, like the only content coming out within like the next month or two. So it's just a disappointment. So those are my thoughts again. Let me know yours. If you like this content, obviously like and subscribe and all that, and just let me know what you think. This was not a good day for New World in my opinion, but yeah. Let me know your thoughts and catch you all next time. Peace out.